Freaking out, man. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men in power want? More power.
My name is Gianluca Zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom. Here we go, guys and girls. Another Sunday, another show. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on K-Talks 1340 AM. And also we have a new FM station, 104.1 FM. No, it's not .1. What am I saying? 104.1 FM. You know, sometimes I go really crazy names and I start to make up words. Anyway, bottom line, we're also on the internet, lovegunsfreedom.com. I must tell you, it's, I can't believe it, almost 3 years, or no, more than 3 years right now, that I've been on the air. Can't believe it, I'm still here. But the point is, what I really am happy about it, and more important, grateful, the opportunity to learn and to meet incredible people. Sometimes, you know, we live our life and yes, we can read books and we can maybe try to learn, but you need to interact to be having the opportunity sometimes to, I don't say influence, but at least to have an open vision of what really is going on out there. And I'm a really curious person. I love to study. I love to learn everything since I was a child. And sometimes the books don't do enough. I mean, they are a follow-up, but you must have that magic inspiration when you meet people that somehow, in a different way, maybe they can, even just because they live their life in a different way, at least for me, they keep me, let's say, interested, and they create curiosity. And I love curiosity. I like always to investigate. Now, the point is, this is the hour about freedom. This show is called Love, Guns, and Freedom. And I said, what is the first freedom really that we should enjoy and appreciate in this country especially? We have freedom of religion. And you don't even need to be a religious person. You can do pretty much whatever you want. Only thing I ask, and only thing should be, in my opinion, that whatever belief you have, you do not infringe on other people's rights. That's the bottom line. That's the only thing I only ask. And I think every other American should ask, in my opinion. You know, this is the beautiful thing. You know, you can do your stuff. You should have the right to be left alone to do whatever you want. The only thing is you cross the line when you start to, let's say, force your belief on others, especially with violence, or infringe on other people's rights. So that's the only line where I draw. So for me, every other religion that somehow do their stuff, I welcome them. And I don't even bother because I'm not even a religious person. I got my personal belief. But lately, the last few months, let's say almost 1 year right now, I had the opportunity to meet different friends that I respect as human beings. They also share the belief of completely different from Christianity. They call themselves heathens or pagans or other things now you will find out. And I tell you, beside the religious aspect, what I like about most of these beliefs, about their way lifestyle and their way somehow they supposed to, at least some of them or most of them, especially when there is a branch of religion called Asatru, they live their life, their code. I like that. But let me just shut up and let me bring the guest, because that's at the end of the day the most important person that can share really what's going on with this religious belief. Vincent from, I think, Tucson, Arizona, or somewhere down there. Vincent, are you there?
I am here, yes.
First of all, Vincent, I'm all right, man. Thank you very much for being here one more time. You were here probably about maybe a couple months ago or so.
Yep.
And first of all, Vincent, which part of Arizona are you from?
I'm from Mesa, so I'm in Mesa, Arizona.
Okay, perfect. And your first name is Vincent. I don't want to distort your last name. If you want to say, go ahead. Otherwise, we just call you Vincent, whatever you want.
That's fine. My last name's Enlund. It's an old
Enlund.
Swedish last name.
Very good. So that's what I was saying, Vincent. What I really got fascinated the last, let's say, almost 1 year since I've been studying, at least partially, because I'm not really that expert, but I'm trying to study the Asatru and the heathen religion, is the aspect of one thing I like, freedom, independence, and the spirit of never bowing down to anybody. I mean, let's say that pride that I saw lost in many other civilizations. They always trying to, at the end of the day, bow down to somebody. Could be their, prophet, or could be their pope, or whatever. I like the idea that you guys, at least for what I understand, you bow down to no man. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're pretty much right. We don't really have any type of centralized leadership. There's no Asa Pope or heathen. We have clergy that help with things, but there's no real centralized leadership for all of Asatru. Most people are very tribal. They have like local people that they may choose to follow or that they're close to, but there's no centralized leadership.
Okay. And, as I said, for me, for what I'm learning now, at least I try to figure it out, it is not even about the religious aspect that I'm concerned, because, as I said, I'm not, I got my faith, I keep it for myself, and I don't look like to find a new belief. But what I like about you, at least your type of, let's say, philosophy, if you want to look at that aspect, beyond the religious aspect, it is a little bit the lifestyle, the code of let's say, every religion has some sort of code of rules or some sort of a code of behavior. And
Yep.
I guess, Asatru, for what I learned, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may say sometimes stupid things because I'm just, I try to study stuff from books, and I don't say every book is the right book, okay? So I'm just trying always to research. So for example, I was reading just a few weeks ago the different type of principles that are the foundation of Asatru. Is there something like that, or you just made up in the 70s, or some sort of a new thing that is just something came out recently?
Well, we do have what are called the Nine Noble Virtues. They're pretty commonly known, although they vary a little bit from, one region or another may have slightly different versions of the Nine Noble Virtues. They are a relatively new thing. Although the virtues are taken from the old lore and from that kind of a thing, they were made in actually the 60s would be a more accurate time frame, is when they were written. But we do still have virtues. I mean, there are distinctive traits and virtues that go along with being Asatru or being a heathen. The Nine Noble Virtues are great for beginners, people who are new, who are trying to understand. That's a good starting point. But it is considerably more detailed than that. And especially when you're thinking about them as virtues, I like to tell people that the Nine Noble Virtues are really more like an ethos, as opposed to like a 9 commandments. They're not commandments or rules. They're ideas to help you be a better person, and they really have to be taken in context from an ancient heathen worldview.
Exactly. This is important because it is not like the 10 Commandments. It's like some sort, you say, ethos, from the Greek word ethos, like ethic, like the way you should develop, as a human being. That's very important as a difference. It's not like, oh, you have to do this, like, the 10 Commandments. No, this is something that they try to guide you to improve yourself as a human being. Let's go through a little bit, because I tell you, as much as the people say, yes, there's something that be rediscovered in the 60s, but there's also some, they come from some books that I know they're pretty fundamentals in your belief. Am I right or wrong?
Yes. Yeah. There are quite a few books that are pretty fundamental in understanding what, our ancient forefathers had for a worldview and how we're going to, address our worldview and our ethos or our ethics. We could say that, how are we adjusting our ethics today compared to what our ancestors would have been proud of?
Yes. Let's talk about those. Let's talk about those, because I think, beyond the people out there say, you know what, I don't care about this religion. I got my own religion. This is not about religion anymore. This is about, for me, a way to start. First of all, I like to learn new things, regardless. I always bring new topics on the show, and that's the beautiful thing. We can talk about on the show things that normally many other commercial stations, they don't even want to talk about it. So that's number one, freedom of speech. And more important, I like to learn things that could be also beneficial, in my opinion, as an improvement as a human beings. Because now let's go through the 9 noble virtues. I have it in front of me. If you want, you can tell me, or I can tell you just the headline that you somehow you can interact and edit a little bit. Number 1, courage. I mean, can you articulate a little bit about it? What exactly means about courage? What should we do here?
Courage is one of those. So of the nine noble virtues, I think courage is kind of a standard one in the idea that it's pretty common. I think any religion can benefit from the idea that as an ethic, being courageous in your life, and not just in big things. I think a lot of people find it very easy to be courageous in really big things when the pressure is on and everybody's looking at you to be courageous, although some people obviously aren't. I think it's easier to be courageous there, but to be courageous in your daily life, in the decisions that you make, to make the decisions that are the right decisions, not just the easy decisions, becomes that idea of this day-to-day courage. And like all the nine noble virtues, I think you have to look at them from a heathen point of view, which is that point of view of inner guard or tribe. The most important people to you are the people closest to you. So when you're looking at things like courage, I'm not necessarily looking at courage as it compares to everybody else. I'm looking at being courageous as it applies to my family, as it applies to my closest friends, as it applies to the neighborhood that I live in and the people that I work with every day. How am I courageous in that aspect?
Interesting. Well, this is true. I mean, and top, another thing you have, and this is what I understand, is also part of the Norse culture. In the past times, they were like families. First of all, families it's the cell of every civilization, in my opinion. But it was very strong, especially in the Norse culture. Then, of course, there were the clans. The different. Like say you are from this clan and the other clan, but it's always created by different families. And there is on top of the. Correct me if I'm wrong when I say this thing, because I'm been studying on several books. On top of the clan, there is always a leader. Then, of course, there used to be at the time, the ancient times, there used to be the king. They pretty much because somehow.
And that came later. Ideally, when we look back at like Germanic tribalism, which is where to be honest, is where most of this comes from. This comes from ancient Germanic tribalism. As far as Asatru goes, there are some other branches when you start to get into heathenry as a whole, but a lot of them have similarities. So I think we can adjust the similarities as we look to. Yeah, these groups, these inner groups or these tribes, there was usually some type of leader. It was almost always the wealthiest person, whether it be a landowner or a farmer or a trader who just had a lot of money. And then he had those people who followed him, and that turned into a tribe. Later on, we had chieftains and jarls, which is an old Norwegian Nordic word that eventually got turned into the earls. We hear the English word earl, and that comes from the Nordic word jarl. Now, eventually, we do have kings, and this is after the Christianization of Scandinavia, and where you have Christians and heathens kind of mixing in together, and then you start to see heathen kings, although they quickly became Christian kings because it was financially profitable to be a Christian king.
Yeah, I mean, also the Pope, of course, and the Catholic Church in general, there was a bigger extra influence in all this process.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure there were some benefits came with that. That's
money and trade, sure.
And also, we're talking about, you convert, let's say they used to pay the enemy just to say, can we stop fighting? We pay you, okay? Now, if you convert, we give you an extra tip. By the way, we can give you a bonus. If you don't kill us anymore and you convert, you're going to get extra bonuses, we promise.
Yep.
That's pretty much the way I think it went down, many things. But this is very interesting. As I said, people say, what the heck has to do this with freedom? Well, first of all, this is the beautiful thing that I know for sure in many parts of Europe, not that far ago, not that long ago, if you were, let's say, raised as a heathen, they used to call you a witch if you were a girl, or other bad names if you were a guy, and you were really living in isolation. And let's put it this way, it wasn't funny. I have personal friends from Denmark, even Sweden, that they were raised because they never really became Christians. I think they never really left their belief. It's not like, there is a coming back to heathenism. No, they never really left it. But the point is, during history, even recently, in some part of Europe, life wasn't that easy. People sometimes, we don't talk about this because they think it's a minority, but there is the reality. Here, probably in America, it's a little different. We have freedom of speech, but in some parts of Europe, it was pretty easy. I mean, by the way, even in America, they used to put the witches on the bonfire. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So that let's not forget that. So that's my point. We should be able to talk about this without any more of the stigma. Oh my God, it's and more important, educating people, because I hate people. The first time when I start to talk about heathenism, oh, you're a pagan, you are a devil worshiper. What are you talking about? First of all, I'm nothing. Not just because I sympathize or I read their book means that I am. I'm just somebody that loves to learn. That's another thing. But they talk to me just because I am interested and I talk about these things. I can imagine how they can talk to a person that really is a heathen, That's another story. But anyway, let's continue, because I think this is fascinating. And I think there are a lot of things, regardless what type of belief you are, who disagree with courage. Number one, virtue. Number two, truth. Let's talk about that.
Now, truth is one that I think varies on some people's different versions of the Nine Noble Virtues. I think it's good. And this is how, so I'll say right now, truth is not in my version of the Nine Noble Virtues. It is an older one, only because I think truth is important only in the fact as how it pertains, again, to your tribe, to those people closest to you. It's important that the people closest to you can trust you, that you can be honest with them, that they know if you say you're going to do something, that you're going to do that, and there's no mistake on that. And so I think in that aspect, truth becomes a very strong virtue. But again, we come down to making sure that we're looking at it. I don't think any heathen in ancient times cared about being honest with everybody. He only cared about being honest with his family and his close friends. I mean, everyone else he could lie to and no one cared.
With your enemy, I'm sure you don't want to be honest. That's the bottom line. He's trying to kill you. Say, wait 1 second, let's play fair. I don't think that's what's going to work, okay? No, I agree with you. That part is true. Truth, in general, it's a big word, but as I said, I wouldn't ever be true with my enemy or somebody who's trying to harm me or my family or my group. I agree with you. Now, something I think
that fits into fidelity, which is another one of the Nine Noble Virtues.
Yes, it's number 4. Talk me about that. Tell me about that.
And so I think that's where you really start to see the virtues coming together as an ethos, when you start looking at things like truth and fidelity. Because truth and fidelity go hand in hand when you're talking about, again, your tribe. When you're talking about the people that you work with every day, whether it's at your job or whether it's your family or whether it's your close friends, this idea that they know you're loyal to them. They know they can believe the things that you tell them, and that you know the same things from them. And that starts getting into what Asatru and heathenry really is. It's building an inner guard. It's building a group of people that you have this very strong group of ethos that you know are true. You know you can trust them. You know that they're loyal to you, and you know you're loyal to them. You know you can believe the things they tell you, and that they'll believe the things you tell them.
Yeah.
So that's what the Nine Noble Virtues is more for. It's for building that inner group, that tight-knit, trustable inner group that our ancestors lived by.
Yeah, and I think, regardless, even if I don't know you, I'm telling you something. If I give you a word talking about honor, let's say I give you my word that I will do that, or I will not do that, or I want to live by the word. That's, I think, something that, and I think also in the ancient times, most of them, I'm not saying everybody was, completely ethical, but that type of word at the end, it's probably the most important thing a human being can have, because if you don't have your word, you don't have anything at the end. You're less than zero, and I like that part. In my opinion, everybody who can keep their word, or at least it's understand the importance to keep the word. It is something that it is worth it to respect. That's what.
No, I agree.
That's the bottom line. Talking about discipline, it's something that, sometimes we don't talk much in general in this life. People think they can do whatever they want, or somehow, I don't know, it's kind of just do it. Discipline, I think it's important quality if you want to also, let's say, improve as a human being, if you want to achieve goals. I realize how difficult it is if you don't have discipline. Sometimes myself, I challenge myself. Hey, I need to be more disciplined. I have only 24 hours during the day. I need to be sure I use every hour, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's incredible. But how do the heathens look at discipline? What is their visions on that?
Well, I think discipline and industriousness, again, kind of go hand in hand with those two things, in the fact that, like you said, you have to be disciplined if you're going to accomplish anything. Our ancestors were very accomplished. They had to work really hard not to die.
Exactly.
I mean, not just to have extra stuff.
No.
They had to work really hard not to starve to death or
Yeah.
freeze to death in the north.
Yeah.
And so you have a group of people that were very industrious, that worked very hard, and were very disciplined to that. You also have a group of people who are industrious and disciplined in the fact that, unlike many other cultures in that time period, they were very mobile. It was very possible for you to be born a very poor person, and by the time you were adult, be very rich, have made a very good name for yourself. And that was because there was a lot of opportunity where a disciplined and industrious person could make these big leaps socially. You weren't stuck into the class that you were born into. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of Americans find interesting about Asatru and heathenry, is that America really does share that kind of ideal that wherever you are in life here, there's opportunities for you to move up to other things.
Yes.
If you're willing to work hard, you can accomplish great things. But you got to be disciplined, you've got to be industrious, you got to be able to work hard. If all you're going to do is sit on your butt, you're going to die sitting on your butt.
Exactly. And of course, now in those days, there is unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but nobody really dies because, you got food stamps and welfare.
Yeah.
So there is no more motivation really to be like, as you said, or you get up in the morning and you have a plan, or at night you're not going to eat. That's the bottom line. And, and I like that. Honestly, this is one of the things I like about this philosophy. It's self-reliance, as you said, discipline. And let's talk about the self-reliance aspect, because we're just bringing it up right now. It's part of all this, part of the ethics. Go ahead.
Now, on the self-reliance, I think a lot of people, that's again one that is not in my version of the Nine Noble Virtues, because I think people take it too literally.
Mm-hmm.
That self-reliant means you need to be totally self-reliant. I don't think anybody's capable of being 100% self-reliant.
Like a
But I do
prepper.
think it's important from a tribalist aspect
Yeah.
to be self-reliant in the fact that if you always have to have all your friends take care of you, if you can't take care of yourself, if you can't provide for yourself, then you don't offer any value to that group of friends or that group of people, to your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Your tribe has to have value from you, and you have to have value from them. So it's really a two-part kind of a thing. And to do that, you have to be self-reliant enough to be able to contribute something to the group.
Yes, no, I understand.
I think that's also where industriousness and discipline come in as well, is this idea of all of this is about having value. I have to have value to my group should have value to me, and the more value that my tribe has, the better we do as a group.
So bottom line, this is a very close to the idea of clan, tribal, then you want to call it group, but that's the idea. It's like almost it used to be, people used to live in this, you don't live in the middle of the mountains by yourself. Normally you have your village, and your village was a group of families that united. And as you said, there was a clan, or there was some sort of a cohesion between them. Interesting. Now, and then of course the last part, perseverance, something that I believe it's fundamental, regardless, wherever you're from. Perseverance, what makes the difference between succeeding and losing, because sometimes people, they say it didn't work out, but the point is, how long did you try it? Sometimes I'm still trying on things years, and I still try. So what do you think about that? Well, how do you look at that?
Yeah, perseverance is one of those that I think is just something everybody needs to be better at. I think, like you said, you have to be willing to try and fail. Some of the greatest, most successful people we can look at historically and even modern now will tell you that they're only successful because of their failures.
Yeah.
You think, well, how were they successful? Because of their failures. Because they failed, they learned something from it, they got up, brushed the dirt off, and did it again.
Exactly.
We persevere because we fail, and then we try and try some more. And so I think that's just a life skill everybody needs to have.
Yes, and this is very true. I mean, I really believe that there is no success without failures. I mean, it's impossible that you just hit it right if you don't make mistakes first. The only difference is how you survive these mistakes. That's the bottom line, how you can get your pieces together, say, okay, I want to try again, and I will make it better, and I will avoid to make these mistakes. So I think, really, seriously, if somebody's listening right now there, I know people are listening, and I say, what the heck are we talking about? This is exactly my point. It is not just about religion. This is about somehow finding out how, as human beings, we can somehow, first of all, identify the things, the qualities that can make us better human beings, and not just interacting with each other, but also for ourselves, because that's, I think, is very important. When we are better for ourselves, indirectly, we can, of course, improve the world, because if you're successful, if you're a better human being, if you're a nicer human being, if you have let's say these qualities of honor, truth, and also discipline, more important, be respectful too. I mean, another thing we didn't talk was hospitality. In the ancient times was very important. Go ahead, tell me about hospitality. How do you look at that?
Hospitality is one of the things that I believe is like a major Asatru heathen virtue, whether you choose to believe in the 9 noble virtues or you don't, or whatever. I think hospitality is so important, especially from a heathen view of what hospitality was. Of course, again, if we look at it from the aspect that tribe comes first, your family and those people closest to you, those should be the people that you're the most hospitable to. Mm-hmm. But also, we interact with people outside of our tribe. It's the 21st century. We interact with people all over our city, all over our state. Some of us, like myself and like you, interact with people all over the world. How we present ourselves and how we behave around those people, and how we treat them when we invite them to talk to us or to interact with us in any type of relationship, reflects on our hospitality, and that reflects back on our tribe and who we are as people. And I think that was so important to our ancestors, that they be recognized. They wanted to be glorious people. They wanted to die with glory and honor so that their name would be remembered. They did that by behaving hospitably when it was appropriate. Now, I don't mean hospitable. A lot of people like to take hospitality as in generosity. Hospitality is not generous. I'm not just giving my stuff away to anybody who asks for it. Mm-hmm. I invite you to my home, or I'm invited to your home. I want to be a good guest. I want to be a good host. I want to present well. I want to speak well. I want people to be impressed by me so they remember me in a positive way.
Yeah, and the ancient times also, there were not really like hotels and grand hotels. I mean, there was also, especially if you go in the north, when there was ice and completely very harsh conditions. That means like you die or you live, and tomorrow could happen to you. So also was a code of survival to respecting each other, because hey, beside everything, if I'm here and I don't have a place to go for the night, you don't want to let me die with the moose outside.
That's right.
That's the bottom. And like in the desert, for example, believe it or not, in Arizona, I think I'm sure maybe you know about it. I was just reading and studying some odd laws. If somebody comes to your door and asks you for a glass of water, you must give it to him. You know that. This is. I mean, I would go anyway. But the funny thing it is still a law in the book, I guess. So that's pretty much part of the cultural background where we are from. Now this is very good because, as I said, for me it is still like a journey, and I'm very fascinated. And regardless, as I said, I don't even go into the religious aspect. I go into the social, cultural, and even just the way to live the life, the lifestyle. Yep. I like the lifestyle. People think, well, maybe you watch too many movies. I don't watch any movies at all. I just study and I meet people and of course I read the history a little bit. Now, what is your life? You live in Arizona. After all, we are not in the middle of Scandinavia, and it's 2017, so there are not really any places to, no horses to ride beside the cowboys if you want to do that. You live like a regular guy, I'm sure. I know you got some outfit like myself, kind of interesting, maybe a couple of wooden dishes that we play with that. But bottom line, we live in 2017. What is your lifestyle? How can you somehow incorporate your lifestyle of Asatru in this century, in your life? I mean, there's any connection? I mean, you live also this sort of lifestyle, or is it just something you do when you get together with your friends and your group, and then you...
Being heathen is very much a lifestyle. It's very much a worldview. It's about how you do everything. And I think when you read stuff written by some of the people who first founded the modern movement of Asatru in the 50s and 60s, one of the biggest things they've always said is being Asatru is about how you behave every single day with all of the people that you meet. And so when I look at those kind of things, I mean, I drink. I've got a horn that I use for ceremony and when I'm out camping that I like to drink out of. And I've got some wood mugs and bowls, and I've got a few, like, I don't want to say Viking artifacts they're not artifacts because they're not old, but they're handmade, and they're kind of cool stuff. But mostly that stuff's just for me personally because I think it's cool. as far as how it works in, I honestly think whether religiously you want to believe in the religion of the Old Norse or the Germanic tribes is irrelevant to the fact that a lot of the way they looked at the world and chose to live day to day is beneficial, and people could learn from it still today. And a lot of it is stuff that we did, that people did in general, well into the 80s, 70s, and 80s before people started to change. And that idea of neighborhood and tribe, and again, the idea of being the most respectful and the kindest to the people who are closest to you. I think a lot of people get caught up in, and again, I don't like to bash on other people's beliefs, but I think a lot of people get caught up in the media version of Christianity, that a good person is a charitable, generous person that gives and gives and gives to total strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that that's actually a Christian virtue, but the TV kind of pushes that and makes people think that.
Yes.
That if they're going to be good people, that's the only way they can be good people is by giving away their stuff.
Well, and also, that's one problem I have with my opinion with Christianity. Like every religion that is organized is not Christianity. By the way, I'm a Christian guy, believe it or not. People say, "What?" Yes, but I'm a different type. First of all, I know probably I may be a bad Christian, but I'm the last person that I have the audacity to go out there and tell them, "Hey, you gotta follow this." Wait a second, you don't gotta follow anything. You follow what you are, and be happy. Whatever you are, that's your business, not mine. And people say, "Oh, you don't read the scripture." I don't care. How can I go out there when I know that I have my own imperfections and try from my, this pompous state of mind to tell people that they need to follow somehow what I believe? That's insanity, in my opinion. But, as I said, probably I'm not a typical Christian out there. But more important, what I have a problem with organized religions in general. When you go to Christianity now, there are different sections. Of course, you go Catholic.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I was born Catholic. Think about it. And since I was a child, that's something. That's why I believe in my other life I must be probably a little bit of a heathen myself. Even when I was in front of the Pope, one time I had the chance, because that's kind of a huge deal in Italy, okay, to be in front of His Highness in person, in the room. Can you believe that? Everybody was somehow kissing his feet and kneeling and bowing and whatever you want to imagine. I was 12 and I could never think the idea to not ever bow down. I mean, bottom line, I got slapped. I got slapped because I refused. Think about it, and I was 12. I said, no way. Why should I now bow down in front of this man? I don't care who he is. He's a man.
Just a guy.
I realized that day that something wasn't exactly my DNA completely straight. Or maybe I was too straight. That's the point. But anyway, I realized that I don't like that. I don't like the idea there is a king in that sense. Because after all, he's a king. He's a man that he thinks to talk for God, and he's the middleman. I don't like middlemen, in general. And then, of course, you go now into the other type of Christianity, like, Baptist or whatever they are. And you have these mega churches and these people on TV that they think somehow, just because they got a good new dress and they can speak to God, okay, for you. So I'm kind of disgusted. So I'm kind of a direct, silent, more intimate aspect of religion. And my opinion, people may care or not, I don't like to go out there and preach to others. And that's what normally I like about you guys. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I never heard any I never seen at my doors any heathen knocking at my door with a copy of your books and say, by the way, convert to Odin or stuff like that. I never heard that.
Have you heard the word of Odin today? Can I teach you about Thor today?
You go ahead, please. Yes, I like Thor. It was one of my favorite characters when I used to read comics. Go ahead.
But you're right. We don't really preach or anything like that. And again, that comes down to that idea that our efforts and our resources should be used closest to home. If I have money to donate, why should I donate it to a bunch of people that I don't know when there's probably people close to me that could benefit from it if I chose to? Mm-hmm. And so it becomes the same thing with preaching. It's not a good heathen idea to be trying to convince strangers about our gods. Mm-hmm. That's what we should be doing. We should be focused on helping those people closest to us and working with those people closest to us. And if those people want to know about my belief and my religion, well, then I'll share with those people and we can talk and we can learn, because they know me the closest anyways. I mean, really, what's a stranger going to do if I come knocking on his door and say, "Hey, have you heard the word of Odin today?" He's probably going to mace me and call the police.
Yes, I mean it's true, and this is a sad. I tell you, another thing talking about what I'm discovering about all this, and I think also what happened to humanity the last 200-300 years. Because look at now in Europe, okay? I'm wondering when things started to go wrong. Can you imagine Sweden, Denmark, Germany, even Italy, okay? Let's say not even that long ago, but for sure, 500-600 years ago, somebody tried to pull the stuff they're doing now. I mean, look what happens. You have now a population that is being mentally, physically, and psychologically castrated. Where are the men? And not just the men, even the women. I mean, this has become like almost a new type of human being, a new species. I don't think our forefathers and our ancestors would have put up with this garbage for more than 1 minute.
No!
Look at Sweden now. The capital, it's the rape capital of Europe, and the brainwashed government tells you that now you must understand, and they give you a little bit of a wristband in Arabic, say please do not rape me, and in case they do, be happy, because after all you're happy in integration, a multicultural integration with these poor refugees. I mean, this is the new type of it is true. I mean, Germany, women now, they're going to have sex just to show how understanding they are with the refugee. I mean, this is out of their mind. And meanwhile, we have a continent, not just a country, completely gone. I don't think any of our, let's say, forefathers in any nation out there, from France, as I said, Germany, Italy, and of course, all the way up north. What happened? How things went wrong?
They were very tribal people. This would have, it never would have flown. And there's been a great change in Europe. And when I say great, I just mean big. I don't necessarily mean good. I don't live in Europe. I'm not gonna say whether it is good or bad. I feel like it's bad. I look at what I see. I look at what I see on the news and what I see people reporting and what I can read going on. And for me, it seems bad. Again, I'm not living there. If it was going on here, I'd be pretty upset about it. So I'm assuming that's a bad thing.
Well, let me tell you, I got family there in Italy still. And more important, I have a lot of friends between Sweden and Denmark. And it is worse than we've been told.
I agree. I've got family and friends in Sweden, Denmark, Norway. And I'm being told the same thing, that it's worse than what we know about.
Yeah, it's gone. It's sad because it's a genocide, and it is not just let's say crime and of course completely bankrupt of your tax dollar or whatever you have. No, it's a complete invasion. Let's say with the consent of people that are supposed to be the steward of your country, elected politicians. They are just part of the plan, and they open the gates. And now the gates cannot be closed because the enemy, unfortunately, and I say this words very carefully. I'm not trying to be dramatic, and don't get me wrong. Yeah, there are some people that may be really refugee, but there is a point. There are 7 billion people out there. How many of the 7 billions you're allowed to be? Must be a limit to everything. And more important, must be an integration. It must be the rule that nobody has the right to come into a country. I don't care which country and take over. Okay, because you're still a guest. Now they took over. Look in England. I mean, the majority now in London, it's all Arabic. And, the consequences, all you need is 1% of them that they really believe their book. And they know exactly Asatru. They don't believe in all this, discipline. No, they go out there and the plan is to convert. And if you don't convert, guess what? You have 3 options. We chop your head, or you pay tax, or pretty much, you convert. That's the 3 options you have. Yeah. So that's terrible. What do you think about England right now that the latest attack at the bridge, you have cops running because they were disarmed, and poor British citizens, they were fighting with chairs in the pub.
Yeah.
Pretty sad.
Chairs out windows. I have to say, and this is going to sound absolutely horrible, and so I will preface this with, I will remind you that I'm a heathen. Because of what I'm about to say is going to sound absolutely horrible. They brought it on themselves.
Yeah, it's true.
I honestly think it needs to happen more, because until, as a country, because the government's shown they're not going to do anything. So until as a country, as a country of people, they make a stand and do something about it, or completely surrender to terrorist actions. That's their choice now.
Yeah.
And that's the choice because that's what they've allowed their government to do, and that's what they as citizens allowed to do. And it's sad, and it's terrible, but that's the choice that they brought, and now they need to make it. So are they going to make a stand and stop this from happening, or are they just going to surrender to terrorist demands?
As I said, the terrorist, for me, it's just the final aspect. Sometimes can be also control. I believe that is also behind always, let's say, they know what's going on. Governments can hear you now even when you're in the bathroom, okay? So they can probably manipulate all this for their agenda. But the sad thing, the real big fear, it is what is already there, with or without the terrorist act. When you have a majority of people that they reproduce themselves like rabbits, okay? That's pretty much the standard. The average European is mom and pap and one son or one daughter, one kid. They go now for 5, 6, or 7. So they already created the number. And they are all brainwashed to believe, because that's the truth. They tell us also, our politicians, the last 30 years, that we are a democracy, the most terrible word, in my opinion, you can imagine for a free human being, that translates in 51% of the population can dictate and enslave the 49% at the polls. So what you have here now, look in London, you have majority of Muslims, you have the mayor is a Muslim, and right now they're already influencing your lifestyle. For example, practical example, there are no more billboards with beautiful women in London. They are not allowed because the new code, let's say, of the city, that's very disrespectful for the religion. And I'm pretty much counting very soon that probably alcohol will be prohibited in many areas, maybe where there is a mosque around. So here we go. And Sharia law will follow eventually. So that's what I'm really concerned about this situation. It's not just the few crazy bastards that eventually, if people were armed, they could take care of that. It's the bigger aspect, What do you think about America? Are we following pretty soon next to that, or maybe we have a chance?
Oh, I think we've got a chance. America's pretty big, and we can say whatever we want about our federal government, which I do not have a lot of care for at the moment. But whatever our federal government may or may not do in one way or another, the vast majority of this country would not abide by that type of activity here. You can have a terrorist action. Terrorist actions have happened here before. Obviously, you can't stop terrorists from doing something that they're willing to die or dedicated to accomplish. But on that same note, if you had vans driving in the streets, shooting people, cutting people's heads off in public, and law enforcement wasn't doing anything, you were looking at the most heavily armed civilian public on the face of the planet. It's not going to go that long before people aren't going to be throwing chairs out of windows. They're going to be taking guns and putting people down. Mm-hmm. It's something that's happened here before. It could easily happen again. It's one of the main reasons, one of the main defenses that has kept America for centuries from being attacked on our own shores by outside countries is the fact that other countries know that we are a phenomenally heavily armed civilian public.
Yes, I agree. And I also always hope that people, beside buying, the 20, 30, 50 guns in their safe, they also train and as mindset, because it's all together. First of all, you must have a gun, but then of course you must have, more important, your heart, your brain is the weapon, the mindset. Are you already clear the mind when it's time, if you have to use it? But sometimes people, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say people, oh my God, but living as a civilians, as a regular people, sometimes people think, okay, I got the gun and it's there in the safe, but did you ever face, even visualize it, the God forbid moment that, or God's forbid moment for you guys, you have to use it. It's not just shooting at the target at the range while you're smoking a cigar. Okay, it's really another stage. So people must also engage in training, and more important, mindset, the warrior mindset.
Firearm training, firearm safety. Those are important things, and I think the vast majority of gun owners do that.
Yeah.
The media likes to point out the handful of gun owners that are stupid or make mistakes. The fact is, most of them end up killing themselves doing something stupid, and we don't really have to worry about them. The vast majority of gun owners in this country are safe. They're law-abiding. They learn how to use their weapons. They learn gun safety. They learn how to be responsible. They're good gun owners.
Oh yeah,
and I don't think Americans would fall to that type of violence as a first type action. I think in most cities, if something like what's going on in London right now happened, let's say here in Phoenix, the first reaction would not be for people to pull out their guns and open fire. But the minute cops were running from terrorists in the street in public, you're going to see people take out their guns and open fire.
Yeah, this is exactly the point. You know, you're true. I mean, I think this country, it is completely on its own, and I'm glad that we are unique in this way, because even Switzerland, for example, okay, I've been there before I came to America. Even you have the militia, at least the citizen soldier, but the rifle that you have, it's property of the state. Here, when you want to have a gun, for example, in Switzerland, as private gun, you still have to go through permits and joining clubs and blah blah blah. Here, the beautiful thing that it's completely, especially Arizona, it's almost I don't know any other place in the world, seriously, and that's the beautiful thing. As I said, when we follow up with our heart and the warrior spirit, because at the end of the day, that's for me the most important thing. You can have even Mosin Nagant, a single shot, black powder, but if you have the warrior spirit, that's what makes the difference between, let's say, somebody that just has a piece of metal and some plastic, called a rifle, and he may also know how to use it, but he's not a warrior. And then somebody that, hey, whatever I have, when I face the threat, I decided already what I will do for my family, for myself, for my neighbors, as you said, and also maybe I would do also for sure for an innocent person out there. That's the bottom line. So go ahead.
I think less about, and I think for a lot of people, and I look at it this way, I think it's less about the warrior spirit and more about that is a true symbol of freedom and has been for centuries. Again, we want to talk about heathen worldview, pre-Christian worldview, European ancient heathen worldview, what Asatru see. When we look back at those ancient times, one of the most defining characteristics of a free person was carrying a weapon in public. As a matter of fact, for both most of the Germanic tribes and even Greek and Roman pre-Christian pagans and heathens, the sign of becoming free, if you were a slave, was your owner gave you a weapon. That meant you were free. You could carry a weapon in public. You could defend yourself. You could protect the people that you loved. That was being free.
Slaves are never armed. Slaves are never been armed in every civilization. That's the truth. And, probably Christians going to hate me a little bit. But you know what? I start to look in history where we started to get a little softer and honestly taking advantage. I believe that part of Christianity that is being controlled by the mega churches and, for example, by the Pope, is being used to also completely castrate us as human beings. You think you think I'm something on something? Because that doesn't make any sense. I mean, look at this Pope, first of all. First of all, he's a puppet of the New World Order, and whatever he's saying, it doesn't even make sense from a Christian point of view. This guy is a globalist, okay? He's a communist, a globalist, working for a global government. But beside that, even other popes, I really believe that they come to a point that if you really still live on planet Earth and you surrender completely every defense you have, the enemy is going to laugh at you and is going to have you for dinner. They don't care how nice you are. And that's what happens to countries. They're going to be taken over and it's over. This is not more about...
that is what happens. A lot of people don't want to... A lot of people use this idea that we're civilized, we don't need this anymore. And it is a tool that the government has used and that many religions still use to this day. And that even kings, you start to see the downfall when kings started taking certain areas where, and not so much in Europe, but other countries, because Europe had an armed civil public for a long time, like well into the 50s and 60s before you really start to see it really start to go downhill. I mean, even in the 80s, the gun laws in London were even much more open than they are now.
Yeah.
But you really start to see this down when you start seeing kings and governments and again, churches and organized religions coming in and saying, you don't need weapons because we have a military force that will protect you. But the problem with that is you're trusting the dogs of the king to come and protect you at the king's will. And at the king's leisure.
Yeah.
So if your only form of taking care of yourself, if something goes wrong, is to wait for the cleanup crew to come pick up the pieces, they're not really going to take care of stuff that goes wrong. You can't prepare for everything. You can't have a law enforcement officer outside of every home protecting everyone. Well, you could, but they call that prison.
Yeah.
And so it's that idea that, oh, well, it's a civilized 21st century. We don't need to be violent anymore. There are people who will take care of us. Well, if none of us need to be violent anymore, A, who's the people who are taking care of us, and how are they taking care of us?
Exactly.
And B, if the only people who can take care of us are the appointed official dogs of the government, as it were, well, then now again, we're only protected at the will of whoever's in charge.
Yes.
Assuming they care about us.
Exactly. And, as I said, also, for me, beside the aspect of defending myself, it's even deeper. It's philosophical. It's, like you said before, it's a symbol that I'm not your slave. Because in every civilization, as I said, slaves, they were never allowed to be armed. And this is the first only place in the world. Because in Europe, even when laws they were better, was still a privilege. Never was a right. There was no country, and there is no country in the world that I visited, and I've been around a little bit before I came here, that you have this as a natural right, enunciated in your Bill of Rights. Doesn't exist. The Second Amendment doesn't exist anywhere in the world, even in Switzerland. Listen, let's talk about things that are going to happen pretty soon. I'm very excited. Finally, I'm going to meet you and have some little bit special meat wine with you. Southwest Friedmuth. Go ahead. Completely
Awesome.
push
Southwest.
it. Go ahead.
I love this. So this is a gathering of heathens, primarily from the Southwest, which is why we call it Southwest Frithmoot, because, again, I believe in regional tribalism. And so what we do is we have people come together. It's 3 days long. We do heathen stuff with heathen people, so we can all get to know each other, find out who all's in the Southwest, what are the kind of things that Southwest people are doing, what's important to heathens in the Southwest, because heathenry and Asatru are very regional. The only thing that I ask of people, and the reason we started doing this even was because there are other organizations that do stuff like this, but there's always a lot of political stuff involved. Mm-hmm. There's organizational stuff, or there's some type of oversight rules, like you have to be part of the group if you want to attend, or you have to petition the group, or it's a really good event, but maybe it's expensive. East Coast thing is one of those things. East Coast thing is awesome, but it's expensive and it's hard to go to, and it's regional. It's East Coast thing. It's for East Coast people, and it's run by people on the East Coast. So we started Southwest Frithmoot as a free event. People can come and attend. Wow. If you want to support it, we have an auction. You bid at stuff at auction. If you want to sell stuff at the event, you can. You just donate something to auction. That's how we fund the whole thing. And we've managed to fund it for several years now. This will be our 6th or 7th event. I'll actually have to look on the calendar and see. 6th or 7th year that we've done this. We limit how many people can attend only because we don't own our own property, and so we have to
give the location, please. Location, exact date, and website on how people can contact you.
Oh, yes. So you can contact me either on Facebook, Vincent Enlund, or American Heathen on Facebook. The website is Southwest Frith, Frith, Moot, MOOT.org. The event is from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July. And the actual campsite is on the website, but it's just north of Pine Top, I think. Mm-hmm. It's right around Pine Top.
This is Hualapai Mountain, you said, right?
Yes.
Yes, Hualapai in Kingman, Arizona. This is my neighbor.
Kingman.
And as I said, unless there is the end of the world or something similar, I'll be there. Okay, I need to see. And I would like to. By the way, I need to show off my new tattoo. I didn't tell you. And I know probably a lot of people, the purists, say, "How dare you?" I don't care. You know what? This is about not for me religion. It's about, as I said, something that change or at least influence your life in a positive way. And I have different stages of my life. I met, when I got my first tattoo when I became an American, naturalized American. I got my American flag. Then I got my Gadsden, little snake there. And then I had something that in the last almost 1 year, let's say 7-8 months, studying, and also I had dreams. I don't tell you this stuff. I don't even say to people this stuff. It's my stuff. But, I had strange dreams the last years. And it was place that was now, and was place that I was me, but I was different languages I couldn't understand. And I always felt this connection with the spirit that we were talking before, a free spirit, and also with the connection with nature, with the earth. So for me, something becomes beyond every as religious aspect. It's something from my inner spirit. That's why I respect a lot every religion, but especially, I mean, not every religion. As I said, I can't stand the religion of peace. But beside that, I respect every religion. Respect as, but more important, your religion, I have some sort of let's say social affinity that I feel very close to it, even I'm not a religious person. So anyway, bottom line, I did like the Valknut tattoo on my chest. Now,
Oh, nice.
what many people say, oh, you're not one of us. How dare you? I don't care. I don't need to be one of you. Maybe I'm not religiously one of you. I may be, let's say, a secular guy, but guess what? I like the philosophy. Now, what do you think about that? You as a heathen, looking at a guy like me, say, how would you feel? Somebody like...
It wouldn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me at all. The ancient symbols have a lot of meanings and a lot of purposes that aren't just religious. I know lots of people that have ancient Germanic symbols tattooed on their body that aren't heathen or Asatru, and it doesn't bother me at all. My more thing is that you understand what it's about and where it comes from,
Yes.
and what its meanings were. So when you put it on your body, because that's the thing for me,
Yes.
from a heathen worldview, you didn't put they tattooed themselves.
Yes.
So a lot of heathens tattoo themselves now. It wasn't about tattooing yourself for religious purposes. It was about, however, understanding the meaning of what you were putting on your body, because once you put it on your body, it was this permanent thing
Exactly.
that affected your weird or your luck or your orlog. So it affected everything around you.
Let's call
So it
it...
was important to understand what you were putting on your
Let's
body.
call exactly first of all the Valknut, okay? And
Okay.
from the Old Norse, you have the slain warriors, and nut means the knot. And there is also some symbolical, there are three triangles. If you think about it, the life, the death, and the resurrection that belongs also to other beliefs. I mean, there is so many meanings into this. It's not just something cool, And but of course, it was found in the tombs of many warriors. And there is much more, by the way. I was looking at some origins. It came down also to the first really time that we are talking about that, at the time of Julius Caesar. They were found some repairs about that. But anyway, the point is, I'm really fascinated. And I want to thank you for sharing everything we've been talking and give me some education on the topic. I really appreciate it. And God's willing, I'll talk to you and see you at the event. Again, the last 30 seconds you have. Say one more time.
Southwest Frithmoot. That's where it's southwestfrithmoot.org. Go check out the website. End of June, 1st of July, from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July. It's going to be a great heathen event, a bunch of people coming together. We do it every year. So if you miss it this year, hit us next year.
Very good. All right, guys, you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. We're ready for hour number 2. It's all about guns. Do not go away.